Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So on Monday we had the reveals from Rarity Collection 2, and it seems like a lot of people think that the set is pretty underwhelming overall. Tom and I are going to be doing our opening later this week once Tom gets back from Europe, so we'll share some of our thoughts with you then. But for now we're talking about some other cards that are currently trending on the market, and a lot of these are pretty obscure. These are sort of weird ones that you look at and you're kind of thinking like, that's odd or unusual, but a lot of the time these things are things that we love to see here because they've gone so under the radar. You do have opportunities to pick them up before people have a chance to notice them, and when you do find someone that's actually looking for the card, you have the opportunity to make a few dollars. Let's get started. Alright, so the first thing we're talking about actually isn't a card at all, but rather it's a product, and it's Rarity Collection 1. So I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Rarity Collection 1 boxes are really trending upwards. These used to be priced the same as regular boxes roughly, so you could get them for like $90 or so on TCG Player. However, over the last few months they've actually done a really steady climb upwards, and they're now sitting at around $130 to $135 per box. So I remember talking about this with some friends, and I do think there was sort of a fatigue going on with the set. We all already have the cards, and most of us have them in the nicer rarities, so it's like there was just no point in opening it anymore, and I feel like a lot of players got to that point as well. However, I do think that with Rarity Collection 2 coming out, it does kind of put things into perspective. Rarity Collection 1, I think, will go down as the best Yu-Gi-Oh set ever produced. Just the insane value that was included in there is crazy, with Ash Blossom, Talents, Imperm, Droplets, just so many things. I think that realistically it was impossible for Rarity Collection 2 to be as good, but people sort of got their hopes up for it. Anyways, with the first Rarity Collection, I think that this is a set that we need to look at as one of the best sealed investments that we could possibly make right now. Sure, Savage Dragon and Baron are banned, but this is going to be known as the set that had QCR Ash, Imperm, Talents, and those are only going to go up as time goes on. I mean, sure, one day we might hit the 50th anniversary of Yu-Gi-Oh or something like that, and maybe all of those cards will be power crept out, or there'll be some new high rarity, but that far out into the future, who knows, right? We can't really guess that far. The other thing to note is that with Rarity Collection, I think it's extremely unlikely that the sets ever get printed again. I think that whatever's out there on the market is it. And so as people open up the set gradually, the boxes are only going to get more and more scarce. Personally, I have 3 cases of the set sealed, but I still pick up boxes every now and then to add them to my sealed collection, and I do think that that's something that we should all consider moving forward. So the first actual card I want to talk about is Trident Dron. If you've been playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh the last month or so, you know what this card is: the level 10 synchro that requires dragons as material, and it can pop your own cards to attack up to 3 times per turn. It's a key extra deck option for Tenpai dragons, as it helps to inflict massive damage to your opponent, and even contributes to allowing them to OTK through Pot of Prosperity. The Tenpai Dragons are currently one of the best decks here in the TCG, taking several top 32 spots at the YCS in Brazil from a couple of weekends ago, and the deck is actually currently still doing well over in the OCG after additional support came in the Infinite Forbidden, a sign that the deck should continue to survive on over the next couple of formats. Now yesterday, Konami revealed that Trident Dron wasn't in Rarity Collection 2, but it will be coming out as a secret rare in the 2024 tins. While this is great and it makes the deck more affordable in the long run, it actually isn't coming out until September, which is going to be after Nationals, as well as who knows how many regionals and YCS events. That said, it literally doesn't help at all if you are wanting to play Tenpai Dragons before then, which a lot of players are going to want to do in the next couple of months. That said, the Ultimate Rare hasn't really changed much in price. That's still the highest rarity version of the card, and it's definitely the nicest. The Ultras and Secrets are the other printings. They've technically dropped a little bit. They've gone from like $110 down to $100. I don't really consider that to be much of a price drop. I don't think that the card is realistically any more accessible to casual players than it was before. Anyone who's thinking that Trident Dron is probably going to be like a $20 to $30 card over the next couple of weeks is probably just trying to pull one over on you to get one for cheap. So definitely, this isn't a card that you guys should be like panic selling or anything by any means. Remember that the card still has value for being competitively viable over the next few months. It's just going to be up to you guys to balance out what events you're going to need it for versus how much you could move it for relative to when the reprint is going to come out. Up next, we have Abyss Shark. This card is a pretty obscure monster. It's a level 5 water fish monster that can special summon itself if you control all waters, and it searches for a level 3, 4, or 5 fish from your deck as well. Now, this card does lock you into water monsters, but the cool thing is that if you use it to make a number Xyz monster, you can also treat it as a level 3 or 4 instead of a 5. So just yesterday, we had the first few cards revealed to be coming in Rage of the Abyss, which is the core set after the Infinite Forbidden. Everyone's been sort of speculating that it would be water support since it has Abyss in the name, but I think most people were hoping for Mermail Atlantean support, but Sharks is what we got instead. Anyways, I guess Abyss Shark is admittedly a good card for the strategy, since we got a bunch of pretty cool new fish monsters that Abyss Shark would be able to search for. Now, I haven't actually seen any replays for the deck, which we usually see right away for like broken archetypes. I guess the deck is probably fine since you can make like a Bahamut Shark and then a Stealth Kraken. Abyss Shark unfortunately only has one printing, and it was back in that Water Duelist pack set, which was so bad that they needed to randomly add Forbidden Droplet just to help push the product. Now, this card has typically been around $8 to $10, but we've now seen it move up a little bit to the $13 to $15 mark. It's too early to say if this card is a good or bad buy yet, since there could be a new fish archetype coming out or maybe some good support for sharks that just hasn't been revealed yet. Either way, this card is from a set that was barely opened at all, so if it really does become viable or meta strategy in any way, expect its price to shoot up even further. Now, this is an even more random card. It's Silent Sword Slash. Now, this card is a quick play spell that interacts with the Silent Swordsman cards. Now, on activation, it boosts a Silent Swordsman monster by 1500 attack and defense, and makes it unaffected by your opponent's card effects for the turn. This card also lets you banish it from your graveyard to search for any Silent Swordsman monster, which is pretty cool. Now, interestingly enough, you can use both effects in the same turn, and neither of the effects is a hard once per turn either, so theoretically, if you could get multiple of this card into the graveyard, you could get more searches. This card is of course trending because of the Yugi themed cards that we just had come out in Legacy of Destruction. I refer to them as the Shining Sarcophagus cards, since that's the card that seems to bind them all together, and one of the new monsters is Silent Swordsman Zero. Zero actually isn't that bad since it can negate any card that targets a Shining Sarcophagus card of yours, and of course Silent Sword Slash can search for Zero. The thing that makes this card really obscure, however, is the fact that Silent Sword Slash only ever had one super rare printing from the side set Rivals of the Pharaoh, an old duelist pack that was not especially popular or meta relevant. Because of that, we do have Silent Sword Slash up at around $15 to $20 on TCG Player right now. There's very few copies available. I think the cheapest one right now is like $18. We have a couple of sales at around $20, but mostly at $15. Now, personally, I actually think that Shining Sarcophagus cards are worth picking up just to own them, while they are still relatively cheap, since I feel like there has to be something else coming that might make them good, since they literally took up 4 secret rare slots in the set. With Silent Sword Slash, though, it's the sort of thing that you definitely just try to dump while it's so hyped up because it's not going to be meta relevant, and any sort of reprint that comes is going to cause its price to come plummeting straight down. On to the next one, we have the Unchained Soul of Anguish. So the Unchained cards have proven to be quite strong. Back in 2023, the Unchained deck was one of the strongest for a few months there, until Sharvara was limited, and I think it actually might be one of my most favorite decks of all time. Now, even with Sharvara at 1 though, the Unchained package still looks really strong, with Fiendsmith and Yubel decks looking to add the Dark Beckoning Beast engine to go into Yama. So Yama can go into either Rage or Anguish, and typically if you're going first, you're going to want to go into Rage since Rage is the interruption. However, if you are going second, Anguish is still a necessary extra deck monster to clear an opponent's body, and you can simply go into the Rage afterwards. The odd thing is that we actually had Unchained Soul of Rage and Abomination's Prison get reprinted in Rarity Collection 2, so that's 2 of the potentially more expensive cards getting very accessible printings here. On top of that, Yama should get a reprint in the 2024 tins, since it does fall into that range. That leaves the Soul of Anguish as the last potentially expensive piece of the engine, and so we've seen Anguish start to trend upwards. This card has 2 different printings. We have the secret rares that were around $4 to $5, now up between $8 to $10, and then the supers were quite cheap, but they're now even $3 to $4 a piece as well. This is a card to keep an eye on over the next several months, especially with the Fiendsmith support coming in the Infinite Forbidden. If you plan on playing the deck at all, this is probably a card you're going to want to pick up a copy of now. We're back to talking about another Joshua Schmidt induced buyout. This time it's Witch's Strike, so this card is actually something that's been talked about as a possible tech in the past. It sort of went up and then it fell out of favor. Now with this card, if your opponent negates the normal or special summon of a monster, or the activation of a card or effect, then on resolution, You activate this card and destroy all cards your opponent controls and in their hand. Now apparently Josh used this card in the sideboard of his Paleozoic deck, and then explained how the card could be absolutely devastating against Voiceless Voice, since if you use this card after they burn their Skull Guardian Negate, you're putting them on basically 0 cards and they typically don't have a way to play around it. Definitely an interesting idea. I've just never been too big on Witch's Strike because I feel like the timing of it is really weird, especially since it's a trap card. A lot of the time it has just felt way too slow to be viable. In fact, I thought that this card would be even less viable now that Savage Dragon and Baron are banned, but Josh is a much better Yu-Gi-Oh player than I am, so we're going to defer to his judgment there. Anyways, we've seen both versions of the card shoot up quite a bit. The secrets were at around $8, they're now up to $17, almost $20. And then the ultras are much cheaper, they're more accessible, but they were $3 to $5, they're now basically $10 each as well. It seems that this card always seems to dodge reprints, but every now and then we talk about it, but then it just disappears. I feel like there are better cards that you could be siding than this card, especially since it's really just useful in Josh's Paleozoic deck because of cards like Trap Trick or Transaction Rollback. You guys will probably just want to consider offloading this card while there is some hype around it, because that hype is gradually going to die down. And finally, the last card I want to mention is Atinado. So I just realized that I haven't actually talked about Atinado on here before. We've talked about other Melodious cards, however, Atinado is the best card in the Melodious strategy, as it's basically a branded fusion for a Melodious fusion monster. It does have an effect where it destroys the monster during the end phase to special summon back to materials, which doesn't really ever come up, but it means that Atinado can be hit by Ghost Bell. However, this card also isn't a once per turn. So if your opponent ashes it, but you have 2, you're all good to go and resolve the second one. Now the Melodious deck has literally been all over the place. A lot of people are really just playing it as a pure deck, but also a bunch are trying it out just as an engine to get to Appaloosa and Vortex Dragon without burning your normal summon. Anyways, Atinado only came out as a common, it was in Soul Fusion and then the 2019 tins. However, because of the popularity of the engine, Atinados are actually up to between $6 and $7 each. Absolutely crazy for just a common that's not even that old. I was looking through a bulk bin at my locals the other day and I managed to find like 9 copies. So if you guys can, that's definitely the play. Theoretically, the card should get a super rare upgrade in the next OTS tournament pack, so this is something you should probably try to move as soon as possible once you do find it, but I did want to mention it here anyways because there's potentially a lot of free value in this card if you guys weren't already aware. Alright guys, that is all we have for today's Market Watch episode. Definitely some interesting things that we're talking about today, but they always keep the market interesting. I do kind of want to share a bit more stuff with you guys about what I think about like Rarity Collection 2, but we do have our opening that's going to be coming out later this week, and then next week, which is when the set officially drops, we're going to be doing that giant case opening again where me, Tom, and some friends of ours, we like take an entire case, we pour all the packs onto the table, and we go pack by pack one at a time, and it's a lot of fun for us to do. And we're going to record that and hopefully share some of that with you guys as well. Anyways, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch episode, please make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.